Start going to the bar and get a beer and talk to the bartenders, bouncers at nightclubs. These people have people skills. How long have you been here? What's your name? Are you local? These are people that make amazing cold callers. If you are hiring a rep, invite them to lunch. That's where you're going to conduct the interview. Get your table, get your server, and tell them to mess up their food. You need to see how they react. How much money do you want to make annually? They have no idea. On one end of the spectrum, you got kids yelling out, I want to make 15 grand a year. You're going to struggle your entire life. But then you have this other person that's like, I got to make 10 million a year or I ain't shit. And you're like, what planet are you on? How many vacation days do I get? If that's your first question for me, I don't know that I'm even going to call you back. You're the equivalent of that person at a blue collar manufacturing job that is 10 minutes late for work, clocks in, and then goes and smokes a cigarette.
All right, welcome back to the SDR Fire podcast. Today, we're actually drawing a full circle. And the guy that I have today is one of the few people that I initially followed on LinkedIn when I started in sales, and it's been a while. And so today I'm talking to James SayWhatSales Buckley. If that sounds familiar, then you're on the right track. So James has been a sales leader for more than 10 years now. He's groomed more SDRs and AEs than that it makes sense to even count. And he's one of the pioneers of LinkedIn creator movement, specifically in this realm of B2B sales. And today, he's the host of the Sell Better Daily Sales Show. And I think that's enough of an intro. So, dude, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. SDRs are where my heart lies. I feel like people don't fully understand their value as an SDR, but it's something that carries you through your sales career. So I always tell new sales development reps, yo, if you think that one day you're going to become an account executive and then you're never going to have to prospect or talk to strangers again, wake up, because that is not real.
Yep, exactly. And I think it's also important to note that SDRs are actually the bloodline of the company, because without leads, there's no sales, there isn't anything. And I think that they're underrated and are overlooked, and founders think it's, like you just dial and get me. No, it's not that easy. So 100% with you there. And speaking of which, you've been a BDR yourself, and
I'm
you've been a
still a BDR. I'm still.
Exactly. So like, can you give us a quick, let's say, or walkthrough of like, where did you start and how did you end up where you are?
Yeah. So I was a cook for a long time, and in and out of the kitchens, I did door-to-door sales. So that was my like baptism in sales, the purest form. Like you'd never know what's going to happen when that door opens, right? And whether B2B or residential, it's wild out there. So you really have no idea. And I did services and I did products at this, both in and out, and I did really well. I'm funny. I'm entertaining at your door. So it was an easy thing for me to get people to drop their guard. Well, in 2014, I graduated from college as a non-traditional student. I was in my 30s and I had 4 kids. I was recently divorced. Like it was a whole life change. I started at a tech company that sold a inbox and Salesforce integration tool. And the dominant way that they were getting meetings was cold calling. So I interviewed. It was a great interview. I was offered the job and given a headset and a laptop after like a week of sitting in demos. And they were like, okay, let's see how many meetings you can schedule. And really there was no, I want to say there was no training, but the training consisted of like me sitting in the room full of 5 or 6 other callers. We all sat in the same room and listening to these conversations. And that was probably better like prep for me than sitting in the demos. But the demos helped me to learn the product. So I quickly rose to be a top performer. When I first started, we were supposed to get 10 new meetings a month, and I started getting 15 pretty regularly, and they made the quota 15. When I took over the team, it was still 15, and it was like 3 years in. But my record for most new meetings scheduled in a month at that company was 56. So they were like, holy cow, let's really do this. And we did, right? We ended up selling the company. It was a great opportunity for me. And then in 2019, I moved over to a company called Ringlead. Best decision I ever made. One, because the team at Ringlead was super engrossed in data quality, data orchestration, the way that data moves through your system. So now I went from like, what the heck is Salesforce, to Salesforce in integration into your inbox, working in Salesforce from your inbox, to the data that was the backbone of your Salesforce instance. And I've got this big scope now after like 4 or 5 years of basically business operations from a data perspective, CRM perspective, and sales enablement tools perspective. Like in 5 years, that was like a masterclass for me that I was very fortunate to have that path. Well, in 2019, Ringlead was acquired by ZoomInfo. And that was very exciting. But at that same time, I got a wonderful call from a guy that you probably all are familiar with, John Barrows. And he said to me, and this is how he pitched me on the job, the way that you make people feel is amazing. Do you want to do it with me? And I was like, sign me the fuck up, dude. Like you had me at hello, right? So I left Ringlead just before the acquisition. Everybody thought that was a mistake. I didn't think it was a mistake because I had wanted to work with John and Morgan J. Ingram for many years. I felt like we were vibing, we had the same like energy. So that was the team and it was amazing. We then brought on 2 other people and then something happened. You're aware. 2020, COVID hit, everybody got grounded and we pivoted to a digital model. That digital model gave birth to webinars. At the time, we were doing like 1 a month. At the time, we were with John and Morgan and everybody, and we were Sell Better by JB Sales. Maybe you remember that brand. Fantastic, right? Well, then fast forward like 3 years, COVID is, a thing of the past to a degree. And John's like, I want to go back to training. We had started doing 1 a month webinars and seeing 6,000, 8,000 people. Then it was, 1 a week and we were 4 a month and then it was 2 a week. And before I knew it, we were a daily show. And I was like, this is bananas. But here we are. John is still John and he is out there training teams like a monster, right? And we are running forward, providing incredible edutainment for the front lines of sales and the sales leadership of today. And I love this job. They're going to have to fire me. I will make it uncomfortable.
Real quick, if you're a sales leader or you know someone who's looking for support when it comes to cold outreach, cold calling, cold email, LinkedIn outreach, we build SDR and BDR teams for companies or complement their existing teams with top talent, remote SDRs and BDRs that are exceptional in outreach skills. So if you'd like to get in touch, just visit sdrhire.com and book a call with our team. All right, back to the show.
Yeah, I definitely remember that. That was really fun. I know that I went through the course. I was, at least for a while, I was very insane about your webinars. And literally, it was just like something that I had booked on my calendar. And that was just it.
Thank you, man. That a lot of people do. And I think that's one of the reasons we keep doing it is because every show we have a wave of people that come to
Yep.
These things are amazing and they change my behavior every day.
Exactly. And I mean, in that time, there weren't as many sales resources, specifically B2B sales resources as there are today.
Grown exponentially, that's for sure.
Well, yeah, definitely. Like everybody's a creator now, but back then it was.
Oh, I disagree. I would say that it's probably upwards of 2, maybe 3% of the total profiles on LinkedIn that currently create. Now, lots of people share, but to create, certainly there's a very small sliver of users on social that actually create things. We see them a lot, so we feel like there's a ton of them. But there are not really that many.
Yep. Yeah. No, for sure. I'm just saying compared to back then, I just remember I was diligently following Lemlist guys because they were kind of innovating in the cold email space. Yeah. And then everything else was coming from you guys. And basically that brand was like that it was just crazy. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Thanks for being a fan, man. I love it. 100%. And the people that reach out and give me the comments of like, hey man, that thing that you said changed my life. Like, that's my why. That's what I get up in the morning for.
Yeah. And so what's the format of Sell Better today? I'm curious. Is it like still like a daily show? Because
it is. It's a daily show, and we bookend it. So Mondays and Fridays we do 30-minute shows. Every show that we do is super tactical. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are 45-minute shows, and that's because we typically cover topics Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday that are a little more in depth. We can go into tools, we can go into examples, best practices. On Mondays, people getting started with the week, they come in, they spend their lunch break with us or so, and it's 30 minutes of like best tactical stuff, like high level things. Think about this going into the week. And then at the end of the week on a Friday, we typically like to set them up for success the following week. So we, again, talk about tools. We give them free things all the time. The show always has great resources that we drop in the chat and in the show notes for the podcast. So our goal is to do a show every day where the people that come and the people that find the replays and the podcast can take those resources away and start using them to get different, better results right away.
Yeah. How big is the show right now? Like, how big is the following?
That's a good question. In total, with our talent network for the pool, and there's only 7 of us at the company, but 3.5 million salespeople look to us for sales advice every day. Now, our registration and attendance for the show, we usually see somewhere between 700 and 1,000 registered for every show. And we guarantee for our sponsors, we guarantee that 600 people will register for every show. And we've never missed that mark. And I think that's worth mentioning, because when you go to quote unquote webinars, right? Everyone in this room that's listening to this has been in a room where it was a massively produced, hugely advertised webinar, and there are 7 people in that room. And you're thinking to yourself, like, why am I in this room? It looks like everything was very poorly planned. There's a lot of dead space where you feel like you're wasting your time. Lots of people will work while they do it and they're not really paying attention. Why go? Don't go. Our show is engaging. Our audience has a voice. I ask them questions. They talk to me in the chat. I respond to them because that's what keeps them coming. The show is interactive and it's live. It's not something that's pre-recorded or edited. And that's what makes it amazing,
Agreed. Beautiful. And you mentioned, pool of, what did you say? Network of candidates.
Yeah, our talent. Our talent pool. We have the best sales practitioners on the show and their leaders. So when we look at our talent pool, we look at what's the draw, and sometimes it has nothing to do with that. Sometimes it's a stranger, somebody that's never been on the show, and they have almost no following. It's not really about your big brand being publicized. It's about what you're delivering to the audience, because that's what's real. We create clips for our guests and stuff. We treat them like royalty, of course, but the whole idea is that tactical takeaways are what people come to this show for. So when you're a guest on the show, that's what we want from you. We want, what do you do when someone says this to you? In negotiation, when somebody lowballs you, how do you react, right? These are things that happen to sellers every day. And sometimes they have no idea how to play it. So our experts that we get for guests come in and deliver that fire.
Awesome. And do you in any way compete with, I don't know, Bravado in I don't know, maybe that placement, or do you guys are you complementary to the?
It's a good question. I have to shout out to my very good friend Beck Holland. I don't know if you follow Beck, but she's incredible. She's incredible, awesome human. Her and I are very close. And what I will say to you is what she says to everybody. If you're a smart business person, you recognize the fact that none of us are competitors.
Yeah, that's so good.
We are all providing value to your teams. It behooves you. It's in your and their best interest to diversify the approaches and the resources that you provide to them so that they have the highest likelihood of success. Now, there is value in having John Barrows come out once a year to train your team. But in between John coming out once a year, I hope you've got other people coming in to switch up that perspective a little bit, change up some of the things that you want to change, try a different perspective at the same time, right? If you're an intelligent business leader in the modern age, you recognize that pragmatism is the goal, the thing that works. And there's no silver bullet there. It could be multiple things that work. So don't limit yourself to that one trainer or that one community or that one webinar or that one show. Go out and find all the resources and manage your time effectively so that you can take in as much as you can and sell to as many human beings as possible.
Beautifully said. And shout out to Beck. I mean, her and I have never met, but just similar to you, she's been one of the first people that I ever followed in sales, and she's a killer.
Let's amazing to me. If you ever see her on stage, to watch her deliver hours worth of years worth of expertise in a 45-minute session is
wow. I've seen it only online via video, but I get what you're saying. She has this very dominant figure and presence that she just grabs your attention and you're done. She kind of pulls
it's a good mix of humor and reality and the sadness of what is and the beauty of what could be. It's very technical to a degree, but that's what some sellers need. I think she does a good job diversifying the approach for all the different people in the room, and however you might consume it best, she's got something for you. And that's a sign of a great trainer.
Exactly. And you and I initially started talking in regards on TikTok, in regards to
right on TikTok,
in regards to actually different practices when it comes to hiring SDRs, and you really had a cool idea. Do you want to share it?
I do. Okay. I've been doing this for years, and I've done it in a manufacturing capacity because I used to hire people for a powder coating company. I used to do this when I was doing business development hiring. I did this when I was working retail. It is a tactic that it cuts so many different ways. I'll share it with you, and then I'll talk about some use cases. The tactic is, if you are hiring a rep, invite them to lunch. That's where you're going to conduct the interview. But you want to get there like 15, 20 minutes early. Get your table, get your server, and tell them to mess up their food. Now, a lot of people hearing that are gasping. They're like, why would you be so cruel to this person? It's not a cruel move. Here's what's happening. You need to see how they react. They're in an awkward scenario in that moment. And let's be honest, if you're an SDR, awkward scenarios are your entire life. They're your everyday 9 to 5. You are a master of being in awkward scenarios if you are a seller today. So you tell them to mess up the food, something simple. Don't go crazy, right? You don't know if they have like allergies or anything, so be cautious. But like, do something simple. If they say like no cheese, add the cheese, right? If they say with this side, choose a different side, right? Here's what you want from the interview. How did they react to this? If they did not say a word and they just kept eating like nothing happened, they're probably going to have a tough time overcoming objections, pushing back on somebody, calling after someone says, take me off your list, right? Like these are people that are not good with confrontation, and sales in some form is a form of confrontation. So that's a sign. Not that you shouldn't hire that person based on that sign, but it's good to know. Let's talk about the other reactions. If they're angry, if they're aggressive with that server, one, that's a good sign they've never worked in a restaurant before. Two, that's probably how they're going to treat you, their colleagues, their prospects. Aggression in an interview setting is a comfort with aggression, and that's probably not a hire for me. I need kindness. This is the best possible response. Oh, excuse me. I asked for this wings, and I see you've got some fries here. If I could just get the beans instead of the fries, that would be great. That's probably your hire. They're kind, they're well-spoken, they're okay with confrontation, they understand conflict resolution. These people are incredible on the phone, in the writing. They understand how to communicate effectively. That's a great litmus test. Now, here's the other side of that coin.
I've been waiting for this.
If you are person going to that interview, get there 15 minutes early and get your server and tell them to mess up your interviewing manager's food. Again, don't go bananas, right? Be careful. You don't want anybody with like nut allergies getting, some kind of crazy reaction. That's crazy. Don't do this, right? Instead, something simple. Again, like maybe they said no lettuce. Bring them the lettuce. You're looking for how they react. Is this manager about to puff up their manager chest in front of me at this table? I don't want to work for that douchebag, right? Is the manager going to be like furious with the waiter and ask for a manager? Oh, the drama right here. Like that's a no for me, right? Already I'm like, I don't want to work for this person, right? You can do these things. It works for dating. It works for like a new friend that you're not sure if you guys are going to get along. You can use this technique in so many settings. So I would caution everybody, like, don't go bananas with it and don't be rude about it. Never tell anyone you did it. That's an important piece of the puzzle. Even after the interview, you can't be like, oh, I ran you through this test, and, because now they're like sketch about you for everything.
Exactly.
Not at all, right? That's probably my favorite technique. I've been doing that for years.
Wow. Okay. I think a few things to highlight there. First off, I love the part where you assess somebody's personality based on how they react to these situations, right? It's a no-brainer, right? And to be fair, it doesn't necessarily have to be in a restaurant. It can be whatever. It really doesn't matter. On the other hand, I think that you raised a serious, and I mentioned this when you and I were prepping. Like you raised an important topic there. How much are they gutsy? How much is the SDR coming into that interview confident in themselves and in their ability to produce better opportunities for themselves? Therefore, like if I see them selling themselves from the back foot and being like, it's okay if you don't hire me. This is who I am. I have other opportunities. Wow, I'm actually going to be more inclined to get that person, right? So do you get somebody who is, if we're talking about SDRs, probably young, probably right after college, probably does not have as much experience in life and sales as much as you or I. How do you get that person to be confident enough to pull something like this? Not necessarily mess up somebody's food, but like really consider, okay, is this a manager that I am okay working with? Like how do you become that person at 22?
I actually don't think that you have to be that person at 22. I would be more attracted as a hiring manager to somebody that was coachable, not somebody that felt like they needed to know it all tomorrow. The smartest new hires understand that nothing happens overnight. There's a ramp period, and that ramp period should be realistic. Let's talk about that if you want, right? And I think that's part of the interview process, right? I'm looking for good questions from this candidate, you know, and I mean, good questions. Let's talk about good and bad questions. You talk about confidence. Asking the right questions takes a level of confidence. So how do I teach this person, or how do I find a confident person? I listen to how they speak to me, and I make that call based on those questions. Let's talk about bad questions. How many vacation days do I get? If that's your first question for me, I don't know that I'm even going to call you back. You're already talking about time off. You haven't even started. You haven't even offered me the job, and you're talking about time off. Right? I'm like, you're the equivalent of that person at a blue collar manufacturing job that is 10 minutes late for work, clocks in, and then goes and smokes a cigarette. You're that person in my world, right? And like, no, thank you for that. So right out of the gate, that's a bad question. Another bad question. How much am I going to get paid? There is a time and a place to negotiate your salary and your compensation. It is not at the interview at the restaurant, right? So pay and vacation time, bad questions. The last bad question that I have, who's my manager? That is completely irrelevant to you at this point. You're sitting in front of the hiring manager, and the job is to sell yourself into the role. Who you report up to comes later. And that's usually something that happens when you get the job, sign on the dotted line, take the position, and then they hand you to the person responsible for your success, your ramp time, your onboarding, right? That's the person. And you have to take the job. You can't just ask that question, because then it's like, oh, I don't know if I want to report to that person, right? Yeah, and already, like if I'm the hiring manager, I'm thinking like, why does that matter? Like maybe this person wants a problem with their management, and that's a red flag for me. Let's talk about good questions. What you have anything else on that?
I mean, I think that there's probably a few things that I'd add, but I 100% wholeheartedly agree. And it's like, you have an opportunity to sell yourself to the best person that you can sell yourself to. Like, you don't doubt, like, that this is the decision maker. Just sell the shit out of yourself. You'll figure those stupid things later. It doesn't matter, especially because you can probably figure out who the who the reporting manager is, because you just go to LinkedIn, like call the SDR and just ask them. It doesn't matter. There are more important things. And to me, that's such an important piece of the person's personality, because like you get to understand, like, do they know what's important? If not, it's a red flag. It's a bad hire.
I agree with you about LinkedIn and being able to be informed. If anything, I would be more impressed if they were like, I assume that X name is going to be my direct report. I'm like, this person understands. Okay, here's something else I'll say before I talk about better questions.
Tell me.
The way that you perform prospecting your way into the role is a direct reflection of how you're planning to execute when you get the role. If you recognize that that is a truth, and that's how you're being measured, then the moment you leave that lunch, you better be in your car, on your phone, drafting that thank you message, right? That's how you're going to earn a label as a seller that gets it to a stranger that just had a meal with you, right? So we're still using the go to lunch example in that. You understand what I'm saying, right? Sell yourself well into the role, and they're going to use that as an example of how you're planning to sell to the prospects. So that's one part. Now let's talk about better questions to ask. Here are questions that perk my ears up and let me know that I can rely on this human if I hire them. Where do my leads come from? Great question. That has me as the hiring manager talking about marketing initiatives, signals, tactics, right? I'm talking about all kinds of things if you ask that question. How are the leads scored? Oh my gosh. Can you start tomorrow? Like, where have you been our entire life, right? are there any books that I can read that would help prepare me for what I'm about to sell for you? Oh, just sign right here and you can start in the morning. Like, can you come to the office right now and change everybody else to be a good human? Like these people are incredible at asking questions because they understand the role. They understand what they're going to be doing. They just need the resources and the understanding of where things come from so that they can craft good messaging. Now, you might notice that those types of questions likely come from somebody that has a little bit of experience. So let's put the shoe on the other foot and let's talk about good questions that you can ask if this is your very first role. How long is the onboarding process? Great question. Now I have to explain to you how we're going to train you. What resources do you have that will support my growth long term? Oh, amazing. They're thinking about your future at my company. That's awesome. Final question. That's probably one of the best questions that I've ever been asked. How will I be working directly with you?
That's awesome.
If I get asked that question, this person has like an attraction to my energy and we're probably going to work well together. If I'm the hiring manager and you'll be reporting directly to me, that's an amazing question to ask that lets me know you're going to look to me for advice and you're going to take the advice I give you. That's one of the hardest relationships that managers and salespeople have. Are you able to take what I tell you and put it into practice? Are you going to balk back at me if I tell you something in 2 weeks that's completely contradictory to what I told you 2 weeks ago? Right? If you're not coachable and you're not moldable and you're just going to like constantly be upset, I don't want that person on my team. That's like hiring a problem and paying them to give me shit every day.
Yeah, exactly. And how do you look at folks kind of taking initiative and like for better or for worse, right? So like, do you encourage that? Do you encourage that to an extent? Or maybe somebody does something against what you told them and then they succeed? Like, how do you react to those things?
Initiative is a vague term, and I think it depends on what that initiative is. Great example. If I just hired you and you're an SDR and you're doing really well, but you can't pass an account to an account executive and then get out of the way, you got to be on every call. You got to be constantly in the email thread. You're sending all this gifts and distracting that prospect from working with that account executive. That's a coaching moment for me. I appreciate the initiative. However, set the meeting up and then go back to work. Your job is not to close yet. Your job is to consistently set up qualified meetings, period, the end, right? So initiative can be destructive if it's not channeled into the right things. Better initiatives to take. Hey, I collected these messages of all of my successful meetings this week, and I'm going to present them at Monday morning's meeting. That's an initiative no manager will be like, that sucks, don't do that. And if they do say that, that's not a manager. That person doesn't need to be working with others.
Yeah, exactly. No, 100%.
So you have to look at the initiative and say, what does this impact? Is it a rising tide, something that will lift all boats? Or is it just annoying and it won't go anywhere and they think they're being effective, but they're just distracting everybody? I have sat in both of those seats before. I've been that SDR that wanted to be an account executive or just was trying to have a good time with people and couldn't butt out, right? I've also been the account executive that's like, okay, James, buckle down. Don't worry about what happens after. Set the meeting and move on, right? Setting the meeting and move on was what led me to getting 56 meetings in a month, right? And I set a new company record at that moment. Like, it takes a special person to recognize what initiative is that's acceptable and what initiative is that's too much. It's aggressive. You're overstepping. You're not there yet, and you think you are, right? These are red flags for any leader that jeopardize the future of that seller.
So well put. I've been thinking about this because you've been working with, at least from what I can tell, with predominantly bigger companies, enterprise companies that have sales leadership and sales structure. How hiring and landing an SDR role changed when, for example, you as an SDR are talking with, the founder, right? You're supposed to be the founding SDR. Yeah. How are the questions changing or the expectations changing? Like, what should people expect coming into let's say a role at the company, working with the founder, et cetera?
This is a good question. And to clarify, we work with teams of all size. We do talk more about the bigger, more well-known logos, but that's a business choice.
Fair.
And I think we would, right? Because we want to attract those bigger businesses, and that's just the way it is. Well, but let's talk about all the teams that we've helped and those founding SDR roles, because that's a really good good question. And lots of folks are coming into startup world for the first time, and they're getting, $30,000, $50,000 a year as their first startup SDR role. And they are being told at the interview that one day they're going to have 2 reps underneath them, right? Don't fall for that hook. Okay. Those reps will not be hired for 5 more years. Okay. But when you're the founding SDR, here are good and bad questions. The same bad questions apply. Let's just skip over those because I feel like the same bad question no good. But these are better questions, right? Are you planning to hire more SDRs in the near future, or am I the first litmus test? Because now they're not even sure that they need SDRs. You're the first and the test. So don't come in with a bad mentality like you're going to become some business development manager of a team of hundreds in the next 6 months. And if your manager person on the other side of the table is telling you that, fucking run away, because that's not real. Okay, regardless of the salary. What is the expectation on a monthly basis? This could go a number of different directions. Here's what you're looking for. The simplest answer. You want a number. I would like X amount of new meetings booked per month. That's the answer you're looking for. If your answer is, I want X amount of meetings per month, I'm going to expect you to make 300 cold calls a day. I'm going to expect you to implement AI into our go-to-market plan. I'm going to ask you to sit in a bi-weekly meeting with our board and discuss your findings. Well, wait a minute. Is this an SDR role, or am I a partner at this company?
Exactly.
Right? Because that's a completely different pay structure and role. Like, you've got to look for these things and know what you're in for. So you got to ask the right questions that are going to get you the answers that let you know, is this a real opportunity that makes sense? Or is this an opportunity that is going to come with a lot of expectation, no real support, because it's just you and this one person, right? And then there's the question. This is probably one of the better questions. I'm the SDR. I'm the founding SDR. Who do I send my deals to? Where am I sending my meetings? Are you the CEO and founder and also the closer? Because that's probably going to get stressful for everybody. What does your messaging look like after I pass you a meeting? Do you have an example for me? Right?
And how do you use that information? So let's say that I would give you that information. Like, how do you, as an SDR, potentially considering that role, how do you consider that company? Like, okay, so if the messaging is bad, how do you position yourself there?
So first of all, regardless of your findings at an interview, as the interviewee or the interviewer, your answer at the end for job offer needs to be, I'll talk about it internally, or I'll go home and think about it, and I'll let you know in 24 to 48 hours.
Yep.
That should be the answer. And that's because a reflection period should take place on both ends of the spectrum. For the manager, they really should probably look at how that meeting went, go back a little bit further into this person's history and see, how do they represent themselves online? Can I find a social media profile that throws a red flag up for me? Is this person wild and crazy on Instagram, but super professional on LinkedIn, right? Those are situations that put managers at risk, and managers like to mitigate risk. If you're the interviewee, you got to go home and think about all the ways those questions you asked were answered. If I asked him where the leads come from and he was like, no, that's your job. Well, I know now that I am probably going to have to make those 300 cold calls a day. I'm probably going to have to send those 150 cold emails every day. And I need to come up with a strategy that's going to enable me to do that, because this person is probably not going to help me get leads. You don't have a team, especially if you're the founding SDR situation. There is no team providing me leads, right? So you got to know how those people answered those questions and gauge how the job will go based on those answers and decide whether or not that's a job you want to take. Nothing wrong with saying, listen, I appreciated your time at lunch the other day, and I'm very interested in the position. However, I was a bit concerned when I asked where the leads came from, and you said it would be on me to get those leads. I've had examples of SDRs in my life, people that I know that are SDRs, and typically they're seeing leads and contact information and dialing through lists. I would like more clarification on how these leads come to me, right? Now the manager, it's in the manager's court. Do they want to engage with this person and say, hey, based on our interview and some other interviews, we've decided to pass on your application and go in a different direction? Okay, no harm done there, right? Or they're going to come back to you and say, I absolutely understand. Let me look at some solutions that would provide great lists for you, and I'll get back to you. Right? The whole idea here is there a consistent communication back and forth? Am I qualified for this role? Did I like the answers I got when I asked the questions I asked? Did this person sitting across from me feel like someone I want to work for? And the same questions are being asked on the manager's side. The truth is that the average tenure of an employee, sales or not, is like 18 months max. Max. You have a year and a half to get the most out of an employee before they're looking for the BBD, the bigger, better deal.
Yeah, you there?
I am.
I'm kind of taking in the answer because like, I can take this in so many directions. And the question that's popping up is like, okay, so we understand how to approach, let's say a bigger team and how to approach like assessing from the SDR standpoint an opportunity, right? We understand how to assess an opportunity if it's early stage, if I'm going to be a founding SDR, right? But like from your experience, what makes a really good SDR? And I'm not really like, what are the signals that you can observe? We talked about kindness, right? But like, how do you know that somebody's going to act, or at least be to a certain level certain that somebody's going to be successful as an SDR? And I know that you like to hire a certain background of people, but like, I'm really curious to understand how you're thinking through that.
Okay, so where do great SDRs come from? Let's change the question just a little.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
The question at hand here is, what characteristics are you looking for to take a chance on a human that could be beneficial to your organization? That's a very technical way of asking the same question. So here's my suggestion. Once again, we're back to restaurants. As I said, I spent many years walking up to tables full of strangers. Hi, my name's James. I'll be your server today. Would you like some nachos or some margaritas to kick off? Right? You can tell that I've said that a time or two. And the reason why it comes off so naturally is because I did it for so long. These people that work at restaurants, bartenders, servers, bouncers at nightclubs, these people have people skills. They are able to deflect. They're able to have quick and witty conversation with strangers that they don't even know the names of. They are able to make jokes that are acceptable in group settings. They have no fear approaching groups of strangers and breaking into conversation. It's bred out of them in the restaurant industry. So here's my suggestion. You're a manager, you have several roles open. Start going out to dinner with your family. Talk to the servers. Go up to the bar and get a beer or a drink and talk to the bartender. Most times you could get a good back and forth going with these people. How long have you been here? What's your name? Are you local? If they're back and forth with you, having a great time, these are people that make amazing cold callers. They're great to send to events and manage a booth. They are 100% comfortable having good back and forth. You can train that to be more succinct with value proposition, call to action, strong openers, transition phrases. These people are incredible when it comes to being salespeople. And it's because they start out without fear. If you get a person right out of college and they've never had a professional job before, they've never been a server, they've never had a job where they were behind a counter, never been a cashier, they have no public eye comfort. They have no concept of what it is to have a back and forth with someone they don't know. You can see that fear. I remember I worked with a guy, his name was Phil. Phil is an amazing human. He had this deep voice. And I mean, it was the kind of voice that most men aspire to. It was so deep. But when he picked up the phone to cold call, he became a little mouse and his voice raised really high. And for the life of me, I could not figure out why this happened. For 6 months, I tried to train it out of him. It couldn't happen. I ended up having to let him go. And it was because he was like entrepreneurship. I knew this man for 9 years. I seen him start a company that made and sold cornhole boards, the game cornhole, right? I saw him fix people's computers. He was very techie. He made DVDs for people and sold them. Like, it was amazing. I hired him thinking he would be a great cold caller, and I was way off. Something happened to him when he picked up that phone to talk to a stranger. And I realized I hired another person as well. His name is James Shand, probably the best SDR on the planet. And the reason is because he spent years behind the bar serving tables. This guy hit the ground running. And when I say running, I mean sprinting. No problem putting on a Ninja Turtle mask and sending a pizza meme to a company that he's reaching out to, no problem telling modern jokes that are up to date with the current political environment, right? Like, this guy just rattles it off, and he schedules countless meetings every month. He's one of the most successful SDRs I've ever trained in my entire life. How do you have him on the show?
Awesome, man. That actually is it's reminding me of this guy that I keep seeing on LinkedIn. I think his last name is like Falkenberg or something like that. Like, the dude is just like just throwing out memes and filming himself, and he's a killer cold caller. Anyway, so curious. I mean, obviously there are multiple ways to succeed, but you can't be always right. I know I've made my fair share of mistakes
If
when
you're
hiring
listening to
folks.
this and you think you're right all the time, you're probably not.
Exactly. I'm kind of, I don't know, like I feel like I'm defaulting to just folks that are hungry, and I can see that they are ready to do whatever it takes to succeed, to make money, to kind of make a
I
name for
want to
themselves.
stop you. I want to stop you at hungry.
Yeah, yeah.
I have to, because I think
Please, please.
hungry is only the catalyst. They have to come in hungry. But after like 6 months and the ramp has been over for a while and they've hit quota a couple times and they're making more money than they've ever thought about in their entire lives, it's not about money anymore. It's about lifestyle. These people want a lifestyle that they have financial comfort. They are comfortable with the job they have. They are thriving and growing. They're working towards their goals. They're buying things that they've never been able to purchase before. If you enable a new seller to purchase their first home, the chances of them leaving you are next to nothing. The level of loyalty people are missing in the modern sales age astounds me. I stayed at my first SDR role and like grew in the role for 4 years because every year it became easier to do the job. The company rewarded me countless times. I had circled the globe twice with this company doing events, and I was not a traveler prior to that. I got a passport for the job. I was going to so many different places representing. It was the first time an organization as a whole invested in me. This was brand new. The amount of like brain chemistry that I had for sticking around and being loyal to the founders, the marketing lead, the people that really put time and effort and muscle behind what I was doing, I couldn't leave them. It was like I couldn't have imagined it. And then when I finally did, it was because the company got sold, right? And I wasn't working with those people anymore. So there was another opportunity that was waiting, and that was how it started. But I wouldn't have, even if it was still what it is today and it was still owned by the same people, I'd probably still be there.
So what you're saying is we should find, as SDRs, we should find a good place based on the things that you shared with us, how to recognize a good opportunity, and then stay there for as long as we can, at least as long as the company is actually rewarding us, right? I mean, there's a lot of
that. I don't know it's as long as the company is rewarding us. I think that you should stay there, but I think you should stay there, understand what the goal is. Do you want to stay there and grow into a different role? You probably can. Some people just want to come in and do the job, man. I think we get so wrapped up in what success looks like. I speak to a lot of very young people, very young, high school, junior high. I talk to a lot of these kids, a lot of college grads, like new college grads. And it's funny, the college grads are pretty good about it. But when you get into a high school setting and you say, how much money do you want to make annually? You would be amazed at the range. And it's because they have no economic conscience whatsoever. They have no idea what it is to make a salary that they can live on. On one end of the spectrum, you got kids yelling out, I want to make 15 grand a year. You're going to struggle your entire life, right? But then you have this other person that's like, I got to make 10 million a year or I ain't shit. And you're like, what planet are you on? Because that's a crazy number. Not saying they can't achieve it. No one's saying that. But your chances of achieving $15,000 a year are much easier, much better than 10 million a year, right? That's the range that you hear. Yeah. So when we talk about SDRs coming in and being loyal and staying with a company, what I'm saying is, are you happy? Don't go chase something because you think that that's a bigger, better opportunity for you when you actually take a big step back each time you start a new role. I was a job hopper for years. I was always, and I didn't care. I was like, whatever, man, there's jobs around. I was looking for a job when I got this one. That's what I used to say, and it took a lot. I used to blame everything. I left because of this and I left because of that. It was better for me to do this. And I would say, why am I losing these jobs all the time? What's wrong with me? How can I change so that I will be a better employee and be more successful because of it? And that's when I found the SaaS job, and I dedicated myself to being there I was there for 4 or 5 years. And I cannot express to you how valuable that time was, because it set me on a path for the last 5 years, the last 10 years that I've been.
Beautiful. No, that's really that's kind of the whole point of what we're doing here right now. And I think that sales kind of makes you figure out who you are. At least that's been like for me, which is like you kind of you hit so much adversity, you hit so many obstacles, so many no's that it kind of shows you, or maybe it even transforms you into somebody else, and you either become the person who can kind of persevere, or it shows you that maybe you can't, right? So that's why I appreciate this job, sales in general, in whatever capacity or form.
Sales is a vehicle to success, whatever that might look like to you. And I'll give you the example right now.
Mm-hmm.
In 2014, when I became a cold caller at my first SaaS tech company, if you would have told me then that I would soon become the host of the longest running daily sales show in existence, I would have said you were full of shit and that will never happen. But sales was the vehicle for SayWhatSales, my personal brand, the vehicle for me to start with my dream job with John and Morgan, training teams, coaching teams, right? The catalyst for starting Sell Better with Chris and the rest of the Sell Better team. Like, it all happened because I stayed in the sales realm, and I am still in the sales realm. It doesn't stop. Just because you have a different role, a different title, does not mean that you are no longer a seller. And I think once SDRs pick that up, they recognize that even the CEO of every organization strives to meet strangers. They strive to pass new conversations on to closers. If you are in this game, new conversations with new people are where new business comes from. And anybody that denies that is going to struggle to stay afloat permanently until they figure it out.
Beautiful. I'm going to wrap it up here because like I don't think we should add anything to that, but this was really amazing. I've enjoyed this conversation very much, and obviously your content has been awesome over these last years. Where can people generally find you? Like, where do you guys host the show? Where do you post content?
That's a good question, and I am going to give you a couple of things here.
Please.
First of all, check out the website for everybody that's tuning in, sellbetter.xyz. That's the website. I'm going to also drop this link here in the live stream chat. This is all of the upcoming Sell Better daily sales shows that are currently on the calendar. We're live every day. What I tell people is, if you're going to use that link, look at the titles and topics. Don't just choose the topics that are relevant to the job you currently have. Also choose topics that are relevant to the jobs that you want. And that's because you want to be able to get those promotions and hit the ground running. You don't want to have a new ramp up time each time, or at least you can shrink that ramp time. So that's where they can find us. The main website also has sellbetter.xyz, also has free templates, guides, objection handling worksheets, all free for everybody. So by all means, if you're an SDR in the game, we are a wealth of resource, a beacon for people like you. Come, learn, grow with us. I will hold your hand as you do it.
That's beautifully said. This was awesome, man. Your expertise really is huge, and I'm happy that we could share some of it with my audience, and hopefully they get a lot of value from Sell Better and your brand and everything that you guys are doing. So I really appreciate your time, and I'll talk to you soon, and I'll catch you on LinkedIn and everything else, man.
Have a great day, my friend. Thank you so much. We'll talk soon. Have a great day, everyone.